My name is Rich Ramey, today's video technician. The court reporter is Bob Sloan. We're here today to take the deposition of Dr. Ralph Crystal, pursuant to notice in Perry Circuit Court, civil action number 03CI00266, styled Marvin Hollins versus Sandra Hollins. The date is April 19th, 2004, and the time is 3:01 p.m. Counsel will now introduce themselves and whom they represent.
This is Matt Bowling, appearing on behalf of the plaintiff, Marvin Hollins.
I'm Bill Engel, and I represent Sandra Hollins.
Would you please swear in the witness?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Sir, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Ralph Martin Crystal.
And sir, what is your occupation?
I am a rehabilitation counselor educator and vocational consultant. I'm the coordinator of the rehabilitation counseling program at the University of Kentucky, and also a vocational consultant in which I conduct studies of employability of people who have had injuries or accidents. And I'm here today in my capacity as a vocational consultant and not with the university.
Okay. Doctor, could you please describe for us briefly your academic qualifications?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling psychology, and a doctoral degree in rehabilitation psychology and educational research and statistics.
Doctor, do you also teach at the university, I believe you indicated?
Yes, the rehabilitation counseling program is a master's degree program. We also now have a doctoral program, but primarily master's degree program. We train individuals to work with persons who have had disabilities and who may be either displaced from the job market or underemployed or may not be able to do all the jobs that they were able to do before being injured. And rehabilitation counselors assess people with disabilities in terms of physical functioning and do vocational counseling, make recommendations for job training, and also assist with job placement services.
Okay. Dr. Crystal, have you testified as a vocational consultant in other court cases?
Yes, I have, and I've done that now for about 17 years, and I do it for both plaintiffs and defendants.
Okay. Doctor, at my request, did you conduct a vocational and employability evaluation concerning Marvin Hollins?
Yes, I did, and that was done on March the 30th, 2004. He came to my office in Lexington. I have a separate office for vocational consulting, and he came to my office on that date.
Okay. And, Doctor, what was the specific purpose of the evaluation that you did?
I was asked to evaluate his employability, and as part of that process, there are three aspects of that. The first aspect was for me to conduct an interview with Mr. Hollins. As part of my assessment, I obtained background information regarding his age, education, employment, the nature of his injury, what, in his opinion, limits or prevents him from being able to engage in work. The second part was to conduct vocational testing to determine his academic abilities and interests. That's done in order to be able to make recommendations regarding alternate jobs and careers if it's determined that he is unable to engage in his past work. And then the third component was to review the background reports and medical information provided to me. And then on the basis of those three components, I was able to reduce my findings to a written report, which I did, and that was dated April the 5th of 2004. And I also, in that report, provided opinions regarding his employability and ability to earn money.
Okay. Doctor, as a part of your evaluation, what documents did you review?
Well, I had various records, including the report and deposition of Dr. Muffley. I also had physical therapy records. I had the deposition of Mr. Hollins and Sandra Hollins. I had records from Appalachian Regional Health Care. I also had Mr. Hollins' income tax records between 1999 and 2002. And I also had several employment records. And then I had a report from Dr. Mark Einbecker.
Okay. Doctor, the documents that you just discussed, are those the type of documents that a vocational consultant customarily relies upon in performing a vocational evaluation?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And Doctor, the documents that you just described, are you relying upon those documents in rendering your testimony today and rendering any opinions that you may give?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Doctor, did Marvin provide you any information regarding his educational background?
Yes, he indicated to me that he has a 10th grade education, doesn't have a GED, and doesn't have any formal vocational training. When I asked him about his academic abilities, he told me that he could read and write and do arithmetic, and that he told me that he passed the written driver's test.
Okay. And did he give you an employment history?
Yes, he told me that at the present time, and my understanding is from him that he is still working, that he has worked for the past 11 years as a contract carpet installer, and he indicated to me that he installs carpet and ceramic flooring, and he uses various hand tools to do the work. He measures and cuts, that on occasion he uses or relies upon blueprints. He indicated to me that prior to that he's also done carpentry work activities, and he worked between 1978 and 1984 for the government agency, and operated a sweeper cleaning streets, and he's also operated a grader and a backhoe.
Okay. Doctor, earlier you mentioned that you had reviewed some medical records and reports concerning Mr. Hollins. Specifically, what are the pertinent medical findings that you made note of as a result of your vocational evaluation?
In doing my assessment, and what other vocational people would do, would be to rely upon what the assessments are from treating or evaluating physicians in terms of the person's ability to do work, in other words, physical work abilities, and any limitations or restrictions that the individual might have. Primarily in this instance, the report that I relied upon, because it addressed those issues, was the report from Dr. Muffley. And in Dr. Muffley's report, he indicated that, and his deposition, he indicated that Mr. Hollins can continue to work as a carpet installer. However, he recommended that Mr. Hollins use a brace, that he take medication, and try to modify his tools. Dr. Muffley did indicate that the stiffness that Mr. Hollins has is permanent in his opinion, and that he recommended anti-inflammatory and arthritic medications. He said the brace would be for the thumb to support the joint area, and that would be on the right hand. And Dr. Muffley also recommended that Mr. Hollins restrict the use of his right thumb for movement, and that he avoid repetitive movement with his right thumb. So those were that was the information that I gleaned from the records of Dr. Muffley regarding Mr. Hollins' ability to do work activities.
Doctor, were you able to gather any information from Marvin himself regarding his physical condition and any problems he was having?
Yes, he indicated to me that he's currently working and wants to continue to work. He said that he has a helper who he can assign and give various job tasks to. He told me that he has some difficulty with gripping and grasping. He has some difficulty with cutting. He has pain and numbness in his right hand and thumb. He also has some difficulty holding a hammer and difficulty using a knife. However, he still feels that he could lift about 50 pounds, but did say that his right hand is weak and he has poor grip and grasp, and he occasionally drops items. And he also has numbness and tingling in his right hand. He said that his left hand is not impaired, but he's not quite fully learned how to use his left hand, since he is normally right-hand dominant. Also, Mr. Hollins said that as a contract carpet installer, he can structure the work to accommodate any need for breaks or any extra need for taking more time. And he did feel that it's taking him more time to do the same amount of work that he did before. So he does feel that although he is still working, that his work has been changed because it does take him longer, and that he feels that he wants to continue to work, but is not certain if he's going to be able to continue the work if his hand gets any worse.
Doctor, you mentioned earlier that Marvin had been administered a series of vocational tests. Could you please describe for us what the results of the vocational testing, what the results were, and the significance, if any, of the results?
Well, the results, first of all, he was given an aptitude test battery. An aptitude indicates an ability to learn in different areas. It doesn't mean the person currently has those abilities. And his results indicate that he would require educational remediation to go into a formal education program. And also, his results indicate that he would do best on a job learned through on-the-job training and experience. He was then given 2 dexterity tests, the Purdue pegboard and the Crawford small parts dexterity tests. And the results from that test would be more consistent with Mr. Holland's assessment of his ability to use his hands and fingers. He did better with the left hand than he did with the right hand. The results overall indicate that he would have difficulty doing a wide range of jobs requiring fine and manual bilateral manual dexterity work activities. He was then given an achievement test, the wide range achievement test, and on this test his reading and spelling levels were tested at the 2nd grade level, but his arithmetic was at the 6th grade level. These results are lower than I would have expected, considering what he indicated to me about his academic abilities. However, in all fairness to Mr. Hollins, he really doesn't use reading or spelling to any great extent. It's more the arithmetic that he uses, and that level was at the 6th grade level, which does indicate the ability to do the types of cutting and measuring that he does perform. To put that into perspective, his academic levels into perspective, typically a person requires about a 4th or 5th grade level to function in society and do basic things in society. And he is above that level, just above that level in arithmetic, but below those levels in spelling and reading. On the other hand, it's not unusual for people to regress from prior levels of function, particularly if they haven't used those abilities in work activities. The next test that he was given was an intelligence test. The intelligence test measures the ability to learn general concepts, and Mr. Holland's results were in the low average range of functioning, and again, he did better when it came to math problems, which were in the average range of functioning. He was then given an interest inventory, the self-directed search, and on that test he indicated interest related to manual labor and activities of a creative nature, which would be consistent with his current work activity. And then the final test was a test to look at temperaments, and his temperament levels indicate that he would do well in machine and equipment operation and manual labor work, which is consistent with his current work activity. And that's a summary of the vocational tests.
Okay. Doctor, as a result of your evaluation of Marvin, have you formed any opinions regarding whether Marvin has suffered a loss of vocational opportunity and occupational employability?
Yes, I have. And those opinions are based upon the records that I reviewed from Dr. Muffley, as well as the vocational testing that I did. Based upon Dr. Muffley's report, it would appear that Mr. Hollins would be unable to perform the full range of work activities that he would otherwise have been qualified to perform. Now, we know that Mr. Hollins is working, and he wants to continue to work, and he presented to me as being very motivated to work. However, people do change jobs for various reasons, and many people change jobs because they might have been laid off, or because there's an economic downturn, or because the way their job is being performed changes. And that while most of us would like to think that we're going to be working from a given age of what we are today to a given retirement age, the reality is that because of those factors, even if a person does not have a disability, because of those factors, the actual work life of somebody is less than the range or the amount of years between today and when that person anticipates retiring. Now, when someone has a disability which limits the ability to do the full range of work activities, that can result in a further reduction, further loss in the work-life time. And the reason for that can be for several reasons. Two reasons would be: one would be if someone is working and the employer changes how the work is done or expects more from the individual, then the person may say, well, I can't do that work, and therefore they're going to be out looking for another job. And so instead of being able to continue working as they would have if they didn't have an injury or limitations, they are now out looking for work. The second thing that can then result would be, because you have someone who has limitations and restrictions, that individual is not going to be able to apply for or do all the jobs that he or she would otherwise be able to perform. Again, taking longer to find the next job. So those two reasons would combine to indicate why people with disabilities have shorter work lives than people who don't have disabilities. In Mr. Holland's case, I reviewed his income tax records, and based upon my analysis of his income tax records, he appeared, and again, the primary records that I relied upon were the pre-injury years, in which his average earnings came out to about $15,663. Now, this is somewhat less, about half less than what carpenters and carpet installers earn in the Kentucky economy. However, because he did have a consistent record of earning at that level, I relied upon that in terms of establishing what I felt Mr. Holland's pre-injury and post-injury wage base would be. And in his case, I felt that he has the potential to earn money at the same level post-injury as he's doing as he did pre-injury. So I took that amount, and to that I added government-mandated benefits, which are required, and those would include unemployment and worker compensation and Social Security, and that comes out to about 10%. So the value of his salary I calculated to be $17,229. Now, we all know that the type of work that Mr. Hollands did, a person can have a good year and they can earn much more than that, and they might not have such a good year the next year. But I used the average, the 4-year average between 1999 and 2000 as the base to establish that earnings capacity. Then what I looked at were government tables which indicate what a person's work life would be. And as I indicated, that if Mr. Hollands wasn't injured, he would have, and if he worked straight through to age 66, he would have about 23 years of working. However, the government work-life tables that I relied upon said that even if a person doesn't have a work disability, that person could expect to work about 18.4 years. So the first calculation I did was to determine what Mr. Hollands could have earned had he not had an injury, had this accident with no disability. So I took the 18.4 years and multiplied that times the salary that I determined, which was $17,229, and felt that his pre-injury work-life salary was $317,014. And then that 23-year figure, which would be working straight through to age 66, and I rounded off these figures, came out to, using the same salary, to $396,267. So that was what I determined was his pre-injury wage base at the present time, if he did not have an injury at present time today. The next thing that I did was to look at the government tables, and I felt that his disability is about a 50% disability for the types of jobs and related jobs that he could have otherwise performed. And relying again upon the government tables, it indicated that people with work disabilities in that range can expect to work the equivalent of about 7.6 years. Now, when I say 7.6 years, that doesn't mean that Mr. Hollins will work for 7.6 years from today forward and then stop working. What that means is that between now and life expectancy, and for most of us that means when we retire at age 66 or in that range, that he would work the equivalent of about 7.6 years, and that's in comparison to similar individuals. On that basis, he could then be expected to earn about $130,940. And then I use the same percentage difference that would exist in the pre-injury employment figures, and that came out to 9.5 years that he could work if we compare his working with the injury to his pre-injury working to age 66. And that came out to earnings of $163,675. And so the difference between the pre-injury and the post-injury is what I'm estimating his vocational loss to be in terms of employment. And that came out to $186,074. And if we compare his working straight through to age 66, that would come out to $232,592. So that's a summary of the analysis that I did and the background and the basis of that analysis.
Okay. Doctor, have you compiled a summary which indicates the projected loss of earnings power over work life and also the loss of earnings power to age 66?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Doctor, I would move to attach a copy of the summary to your deposition testimony if you have no objection.
That'd be fine.
Thank you. Doctor, have all your answers and opinions been expressed within terms of a reasonable degree of vocational probability?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have.
My name is Bill Engel. I have some questions for you, but first I would like to take a break to review your file.
The time is 3:23 p.m. We now leave the video record. The time is 3:28 p.m. We now return to the video record.
This evaluation that you've done, you did it at the request of Mr. Bowling, who is the attorney for Marvin Hollins, plaintiffs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And as I understand it, for purposes of your opinions, you are assuming that his income remains constant, but that throughout the rest of his life he won't work quite as much.
Yes, sir. In essence, that's the basis of what I've offered as an opinion today.
And as a matter of fact, presently he is working again at the same job he was working before the accident. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And he had a helper before this accident, and he had a helper after the accident. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your opinion that he will work less years is based upon the fact that he has had an injury and then you've gone to a table. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, obviously, none of us know exactly what is going to happen. He could work more than the years that I've indicated, or he could work less.
Okay.
But what I'm looking at would be the experience of similar individuals.
You can't say within a reasonable vocational probability how many years he'll work throughout his life, can you?
Well, what I can say is...
Excuse me, would you answer my question and then explain it if you want to?
No, I can't say exactly what he'll work, because none of us know what he'll work or what anyone will work. So what we have to rely upon would be the experience of others and the statistics which indicates what that experience is when someone is compared to not having a disability versus when they do have a disability. So that's what it's based upon, because obviously nobody knows exactly how long anybody is going to work. We won't know that until they've actually done it.
In the history that you took from Mr. Hollins and in the records you reviewed, did you learn that he had had either an injury or a condition with his knee that required surgery last year during 2003?
Yes, he indicated, and the records reviewed indicate that he had surgery on his knee in August 2003.
And that he missed at least 1 month's work in 2003 on account of the injury to his knee.
I don't know how long he missed, but I'll take your word for that he missed time.
And this condition with the knee was not related to the car wreck, which is the subject of this lawsuit. Are you familiar with that fact?
That's my understanding.
You mentioned earlier that you do these evaluations for attorneys, both plaintiffs and defendants. Isn't it true about 2/3 of the evaluations you do are for plaintiffs?
In the personal injury area, yes, about 2/3 are for plaintiffs. In personal injury, in worker compensation cases, which is the majority of what I do, it's more like 90% are for defendants and 10% for plaintiffs.
Okay, but in a case like this, you generally testify for the plaintiff's case we're here for today.
Yeah, yes, it's not that I purposely go out to testify for plaintiffs or defendants. I get referrals and do assessments and evaluations, and that's how it falls out.
And about how many evaluations for plaintiffs in these type cases do you do a year?
In personal injury cases?
Yes, sir.
I would say roughly 30 to 40 in total.
And how many depositions do you give for plaintiffs in personal injury cases such as this in a year?
Well, in the past few years, actually, the numbers have gone down. I think the number of evaluations has either remained constant or has gone up, but the number of depositions have gone down for whatever the reason. And I would say this year, this is only my second or third one for in personal injury cases.
In the last 5 years, how many would you average a year?
I would say average either by a video deposition or a trial appearance in the range of probably about 15 or so a year, 15 to 20 a year.
And the plaintiff, through his attorney, and his attorney have been responsible for your charges relating to the evaluation?
Yes, sir.
And for the charges relating to this deposition?
Yes, sir.
And how much were your charges for the evaluation?
Well, the evaluation was $1,500.
And how much are the charges for the deposition?
The typical deposition fee is $300.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
The time is 3:34 p.m. This concludes the video deposition.